Okay. So I'm here with Amanda. She is a homeschool mom of two, an 8-year old and a 4-year old, almost 8-year old. And I've been starting all of these with just how I met you, which is that we met at the creek and it was technically like a open group gathering, but you and I were the only two that showed up that week. And we realized we were like, wow, we're both from Wisconsin. We both have backgrounds in theater, dance, the arts. We both then went on
I'm
to
getting
get,
chills
yeah,
because I remember the feeling. I was like, "What?" Just like
yeah,
one thing after another.
yeah. We both went on to get masters in like relationship work, essentially. Um, Peace studies for me. And then what was the actual title of your master's?
Somatic counseling psychology.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
but
we're,
like at a contemplative school. Yeah.
yes. And like, yeah. So it was very bizarre. We just like kept sort of that was exactly it, like, having this conversation, and the more that we talked, we were like, "Wait, what?" So good. Um, yeah, so what was your life like before kids? I mean, I know, like, those pieces of it, but what was, like, most important to you? What was your day-to-day? What was your job? All of those things before everything shifted.
Hmm. Um, what was most important to me was preparing to become a mom, honestly. I felt really like, I think my whole life I had been thinking about having kids and, like, I was planning everything, you know? But then when I got married to my husband really young, and we knew we wanted to wait quite a while to have kids because we both came from divorced families, and, we knew we were young and we, like, really wanted to be mature and to have, like, worked out a lot of kinks before, starting the next generation. And so, I had, lots of different little jobs. We lived in LA for a couple years, so I was a nanny, I sold shoes, I worked at Starbucks, I what else? Um,
I
I was
also worked at Starbucks.
yeah. Uh-huh. Recess. Oh my gosh, I was horrible at that job, but, yeah, but I loved my other job. Oh, I was a tour guide at Universal Studios, and I
That's
loved
fun.
that job, yeah. And then, um, I was always, yeah, just thinking about child development and, like, learning from the families I was nannying for. A lot of them were in the industry and in some way, or at least impacted by it. And I just remember, like, pushing their babies in the strollers and just being like, "This is not, like, the way or the place I wanna raise my kids in." And so, like, we need to leave because I just wanted to start, like, preparing in the place after, yeah, it had been a couple years. So then we moved, here to, Colorado, and my sister was living here, and I wanted to go to the grad school here because we weren't quite ready to have kids, and I knew that I wanted to get a higher level of education just to feel, again, yeah, like, more emotionally mature, prepared, like, ready for my career. Um, I had been working a lot with kids, teaching dance. Um, I did, um, creative movement, and I built a curriculum around that in the somatic dance department at my college, and that was really transformative for me because 'cause I'd grown up doing dance and theater, but this way was really, like, seeing, the body as source and dance making from that place and weaving in your story and your emotions
Mm.
into all of that, into the art of dance making. And so wanting to kind of take that a step further. Like I was always really interested in the um, background and psychology and the family dynamics of the kids I was working for. And so the way I wanted to work with them, I felt like, oh, if I had more training in counseling and psychology, I could do this work with these
Mhm.
families. And so that's kind of what led me to dance movement therapy. And so I was doing that in grad school. And then yeah, my it's funny, like, I made some of my closest friends in grad school, and they just always laugh at, like, every single time it was your turn to share or, like, contribute something, and, our cohort, it was always about babies and children and infant mental health and maternal mental health, and I I was just, like, that person in the cohort, always focused on that, and, yeah, and I knew when I had my kids that I wanted to take a substantial amount of time not working an outside job to raise them.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was my life before, and I was working as a nanny during school as well and teaching dance in a preschool. And then, yeah, I conceived Nola literally a day in between our master's paper presentations and the graduation ceremony. I was just
Oh
like
my gosh.
so, as soon as there was like we were ready, I was ready. So I was like, all right, we're ready. So
That's amazing.
yeah. So that's how yeah, and I nannied during pregnancy too.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then your other question was like what was important to you? So it was like preparing. What was the
Yeah.
other part of it?
I think you hit it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, just like what was life like before and yeah, what was important to you. I mean, I feel like you totally answered it. And it's funny because knowing your daughter, I'm like, "Oh, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree."
Yeah, it's really surreal to watch. It's like, yep, that was me.
Midwife in training.
Yeah, yeah, and I didn't have that as much. Like I always loved doctor of medicine woman, so I was like pretending I was a doctor and stuff, but I didn't really know midwifery.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that became like having my children. I think, yeah, like just the somatic work and then my work with the midwives and stuff, I think definitely informed kind of how I parent and how I homeschool too.
Yeah. Well, and she was present at your son's birth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so that is amazing, and I'm sure
Yeah.
also an influence.
Yeah. So, and we did like so much preparation before he was born, and I think that's part of my whole um philosophy of raising and educating is like um keeping them connected to, like, what's happening with the family in, a developmentally appropriate way,
Yeah.
but, like, life as learning, and so before she was 3.5 when he was born, so we weren't doing, you know, academics or anything, but we, yeah, just watched birth vlog together and read a ton of books, and she went to, most of my appointments. Oh, probably all of them. The ones that were allowed. Some of it was, like, COVID affected.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and so just really yeah, like, she just learned a lot about, um, midwifery and birth and
Yeah.
development.
That's amazing. Well, I know that homeschooling was on your radar because you were homeschooled.
Yep.
So, can you talk a little bit about that experience and also what led you to decide to make that same decision for your kids, because I'm sure there's a lot of people who were homeschooled that probably don't,
Yeah.
and vice versa, obviously. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, I again, growing up, similar to my daughter, was always like pretending I had a family. I was like scrapbooking my family, like planning my family when I was so little. And I think I just always assumed, as many kids, you can't imagine anything different than your own life. So I kind of just assumed like, well, yeah, I will homeschool and, you know,
Yeah.
and then as I got older, I, I don't think I was necessarily thinking I would for sure, but like that was always in the back of my mind, like, yeah, like it just felt so a part of me and so natural.
Yeah.
Um, and then I remember when my daughter was maybe she was like 1.5 or 2, I just started to feel the pressure. Like our area is very competitive around like, well, many places are, but around preschool and like getting in ahead of when you're pregnant even.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so I remember starting to hear people talking about it, at like the library or play groups or whatever. And it's like, oh, and I just sort of, like, attuned to that
Yeah.
mentality, like,
Yeah.
"Oh, yeah," it's kinda searching out and I had seen some preschools, like I had said, I taught dance in a preschool, so I'd, like, been inside
Yeah.
different places for, like, my practicum and internship in grad school, and then, and interviewing for that too in different places, and so I was like, "Oh, maybe here, maybe there," and then I met one of the people who became a dear friend, at a library, and she was with her 2 little girls, and I remember she was, like, feeding them, like, homemade food during story time. I was just like, "Oh," just so, like, struck by that. Maybe she was breastfeeding too, I can't remember, but there was just, like, such warmth and connection there, and then she offered my daughter some food to like, "Oh, do you want some?" And then, we started talking, and I was like, "What do you think you're gonna do for school?" And she was like, "I think I'm gonna homeschool." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's right. I think I was gonna homeschool too." Like, I had sort of forgotten in the,
Yeah.
like, social hubbub of it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was just really, great timing of, like, reminding me sort of my roots, but I think me being homeschooled myself, it it like, there was a lot of parts of my homeschool that, um, were so like, I would say most of it was so magical and,
Mhm.
like, and place specific, like, we grew up in the woods, like, a very rural, private setting, like, my grandpa and grandma had tons of land that we were just always playing on, and so, it was almost, for one, hard to imagine doing it in such a different place,
Yeah.
and then also I had a very abrupt transition out of, um, homeschool that was, not my choice, or,
Yeah.
like, I wasn't involved in the, transition plan. There was no, like, change management plan for it. It was just like the rug pulled out from under us, and it was, yeah, like, I think in retrospect, I think my mom was do because she did all the homeschooling. My dad, like, wasn't a part of that, like, he was in the, like, provider role only, and so she had a very, like, unschooling or, more eclectic, artistic method, like, before that was really a thing.
Yeah.
So there weren't, unschooling conventions and,
Yeah.
resources and groups like that, certainly not in our tiny, unincorporated town. And she, she's always like, yeah, a little ahead of her time thinker.
Kind of
And
amazing that she was that, because I feel like from,
yeah,
like, that generation, so much of it, and certainly, like, my experience witnessing it with people was, like, the more traditional. So I love that
right, right.
yeah, she was, like, totally
Yeah.
of her
Like
time.
we had one family that we met like late, like at the end of our homeschooling journey, and they were, yeah, very traditional religious homeschoolers. And yeah, but yeah, we weren't. And so, it was kind of avant-garde in in that
Yeah.
way for her at that time. And, I think we have so many benefits because of that. But then because we didn't experience like the full arc of it, it kind of got cut off prematurely. We didn't have tools to like transit to, we didn't have tools to transition into the conventional system very
Yeah.
effectively. And so the transition was so brutal for me, especially I was the oldest. And it was in eighth grade. That was my first
Oof.
year. Yeah, right. So just, developmentally anyway, even,
Yeah.
if I had been in conventional school already.
Yeah.
And so I think, yeah, and my sisters were in sixth and fourth grade. So I kind of got to witness their transition too. So that was
It was
interesting.
because of the divorce, that was a huge part of it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think, like, there were my mom was dealing with things and they were dealing with things in their marriage that influenced how the divorce and the transition to school went, which, that doesn't really feel like my story to share exactly like in this
Totally.
platform,
Yeah.
of course, but I just wanna speak to it a bit because that
Yeah.
was a huge reason of why and how we were transitioned.
Yeah.
And particularly, with and yeah, I feel like this is relevant to sort of how I approach, like, the blend of how I homeschool.
Yeah.
Um, so that's why I'll go into it, but, there was, a moment where it was sort of informal, but also super formal. This test was thrust upon us, this standardized test, and we had done, like, tests in the back of our workbooks kind of a thing, like, at our own pace, on the deck in the sunshine, like, with a snack,
Yeah.
and so I was just like, "What is this?" You know?
Yeah.
And, so I scored very poorly on that, of course,
Yeah.
and, so I remember, like, that test score feeling so, like, "Oh my like, I'm stupid," or, like, I didn't understand it as a test. I thought that was somehow reflective of, like, who I was,
Yeah.
and so I felt like, "Oh, not only I don't wanna go to school because it's not my choice, and it's part of the divorce, and it's part of this whole, you know, traumatic thing for a kid, but it was like I won't be able to because
Yeah.
like I look at the testers like I'm gonna fail. And so I had this tremendous amount of pressure to perform, not only for myself, but I think because I knew my mom's heart in homeschooling was in such a good place and like I had felt the bounty of it so much, like, she just the things that she taught us and exposed us to and spent time on, I felt so grateful for that, and I wanted to sort of prove that
Yeah.
she had done a good job
Yeah.
and that I was smart, and so I did very well in school, like, the pace was a challenge for me because I had never had to perform at other people's pace and, like, the
Yeah.
segmented day of, like, "Nope, now we're switching to this. No, you have to turn this in now." I'd be like, "What?" So that was challenging because I hadn't learned that skill,
Yeah.
but and then, higher levels of math in high school or I don't know, is that higher levels, like the like the
Yeah.
upperclassmen once I got to the I don't know what it was it trig and algebra 2, I was kinda like, "Oof, that was tough." But the rest
Yeah.
of school, like, I did very well on, I loved all my teachers, and I got really good grades, and so in retrospect, I'm like, "Oh," there was just no transition plan in place, and so when thinking about, like, how do I want to educate my kids
Mhm.
I think there was part of, um, just the I think this is kind of developmental in, um young adults growing up, it's like there's a period of time where you're like, "I wanna be different than my parents." And then the
Mhm.
older you get, you start to see like, oh, the things that you really appreciated and want to replicate and bring forward.
Totally. Yeah.
And so I see that in my homeschool journey too, like, I'm at the beginning of it, but as I was preparing for it and, no or yeah, my daughter was, like, in the preschool age, I was thinking like, "Oh, I really wanna do these things in a similar way to
Yeah.
how my mom did them," but then my own trauma, I think, was very informing choices I would make too.
Yeah.
And so I've sort of had to learn how to not let my story run the show, but
Yeah.
also like use it as information because, like you said, not a lot of people who are doing homeschool have done it themselves. And
Yeah.
so, I see it as an advantage and a disadvantage in some
Yeah.
ways. And
Totally.
yeah, so I think what one thing that felt really important to me was like having that like, I think the main thing that made me make that choice for my kids to do homeschooling for them was to give them the sense of wonder and connection to themselves that
Mhm.
I felt. And, during that very difficult transition in our family, I felt like that connection that I had to myself saved me, and, like, that was a real resource for me.
Yeah.
And not only to my spirit or my soul, but to how me personally, like this version
Yeah.
of Amanda shows up in the world. Like I loved writing, I loved performing, and I had spent I would do my lessons, but then I would spend the rest of my day, like, playing in the woods or writing. And
Mhm.
so, like, by the time I got to conventional school, I had logged so many hours of
Yeah.
writing in a really advanced way for pleasure, that
Yeah.
my peers just would not have had that time. And, so I felt so grateful for that, and that formed so much of my identity and kind of what rooted me
Yeah.
in even in times, of trying to find out like how I could be socially in this world and these systems.
Yeah.
And so I wanted um to give that gift to my kids too.
Yeah.
And also I think I saw that in my husband of like that um the soul of the child, the spirit, how easily that connection to it can be lost, or like a lot of static can be
Mhm.
in the way. And my husband and I like really connected over that when we first got together. That's like part of our love stories. We would just talk about the school system and just all
Mhm.
the flaws we saw with it and
Yeah.
how, we imagined changing it and like how ways it could be better. And like
And
he
he was
felt
not homeschooled. He was
he was like public school, like
yep.
star, like gifted and talented program all the way through and stuff like that, AP classes. And so he was very successful at it, but he hated it.
Yeah.
And he just had this feeling of like, where am I in this?
Yeah.
Like I'm just like jumping over the bar all
Yeah.
the time. But I'm not sure like why or for what. Like for me in my path. And so yeah, so we just felt really aligned on that. And but then I had this other part of my story too that was like I did not have social skills and like I didn't know how to, yeah, take a test or be timed, like perform to a certain like in a certain block of time. Like that just was so stressful to me. And so I'm still trying to find, the balance.
Yeah.
Like again, my daughter's so young and we're still trying to kind of find the balance of that for us.
Yeah.
But I have, and again, it's not like I anticipate a, traumatic divorce in our
Yeah.
family, but for
Yeah.
whatever reason, for whatever reason, if there needed to be, and not even, it wouldn't even have to be the same thing, like a full on transition out of, but just like a change. Like, what if at some point they want to, do a year of conventional school, or they want to try this school, or they want to try this class, or they want to go for this test, or whatever it may be. Like, I want them to be, um, have fluency, or um
Yeah,
in the ability to code switch, if I don't know if that's
totally.
the appropriate term here, but
Yeah.
because it's such a I just remember the somatic experience of like,
Mhm.
this is school, like,
Yeah.
because I was so used to like what learning was and how it felt to me, and how it was just connected to my mom and to my grandparents and to the woods and to the fort we had built and our, doll, world that we had built. Like, it was all connected, and then it was just like, oh, um this container was so different.
Yeah.
And so just I wanted there to be some way that I could give them an experience in different environments. And I'm also, I was also really aware that both my husband and I grew up in a very um town with very little diversity.
Mm.
And so I felt that limitation, when as I grew up and we traveled a lot, and seeing like, wow, there's so much more. And so, yeah, that was another piece of like, oh, how can I, yeah, just expose them to more environment, different types of facilitators, different types of teachers, different types of peers. Um, and yeah, I think just any parent does this of like, how can I challenge them
Mm.
in just enough ways so that they build resilience, so it's like just tough enough that they're getting
Yeah.
stronger while not being flooded and
Yeah.
overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And so that yeah, and I think for me there's always like, oh, they're so little now, like, eh, and I also saw from my own experience, like, it is you do this gradual building and development. And so even, my sister who kind of transitioned in, we started at a really small, it was almost like a co-op. It was a school, but it was like a church school.
Mhm.
We weren't super religious, but it was like my grandpa was trying to help us find like a good middle option. And so it was this really small school, small classes. But even, yeah, like my sister who was in 4th grade, it was tough, to learn how to do that. And,
Yeah.
so, yeah, was I've always been trying to find how do I, you know, feel like I'm protecting and staying connected with them enough while also letting go and giving them all these diverse experiences that will help them have tools for whatever they might wanna do later, whatever I might need them to do, whatever they might choose to do. Um, yeah.
I mean, so beautifully said, like, so eloquent, and it's so impressive how integrated I feel like your experiences with the way that you're homeschooling. Like, I can say as someone who knows you, like, that's exactly what you're doing.
Mm,
So, like, it's really powerful to, like, hear your story and hear your heart in all of those things, and then to, like, see, like, the visual proof and, like, the lived proof of, like, that is exactly what you're doing. Like, and just for people who don't know you, it's like, yeah, you do have them in programming where they're not at home, and then you also have them at home, and then we also are building this community with a larger community, and and you've traveled, with them quite a bit, and so you
yeah.
have
I
this,
should
like,
go I should go into the specifics. I kinda talk
well,
like theoretical, but
no, but
what
I'm
it
saying
actually
it
looks
is
like,
all
I'll get into
very,
that.
like, tangible, like, it is
Yeah.
all exactly what you're doing, and so it's so impressive to hear you speak about it because I feel like even the way you speak about it, like, you have, digested all of that, like, in your lived experience, and then you're like, it's just really cool. So, kinda makes me weepy. I'm like, "That's so
Oh.
cool." Because I obviously, I know you, I know, like, all the pieces of this journey, but to hear you, like, answer that question with,
Mhm.
like, that whole, like, sphere is, like,
Uh,
super impressive. So,
Thanks, Eva.
um, okay, so this is, like, a slightly different question than I asked others just because you know, were homeschooled. But I'm curious, like, when it comes to homeschooling your own kids versus being the one that was homeschooled, what, like, differences, what similarities and differences have, like, come up? Does that make sense? Is that a clear question?
Like, what are the similarities and differences that have come up in how I was homeschooled and how they're homeschooled?
No, because I feel like I got that from what you just shared, but more
Uh-huh.
of like, did you have an idea based off of your homeschool experience of what it would be like to homeschool your kids? Did you sort
Right.
of have
Right.
expectations going into it? And how have those expectations sort of matched up with like what it is actually like to homeschool your kids
Totally.
after having that experience?
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's very different, because I knew it as the, um, like, participant, like,
Yeah.
the child, and so being in the mom role, um, it's been yeah, there's been so many surprises, and it's also helped me, you kinda said it's so nice to hear the full arc, like, how I've digested it. It's really helped me digest what my experience was
Yeah.
and, um, heal some of my own wounds around it and have compassion for my mom because I understand, now her role a little bit better.
Yeah.
Um, and I think I'm because I'm trying to do things differently in a lot of ways, it's, like, those things then, yeah, they feel different than what I
Yeah.
remember, but then I think also, just the time of the world is different, just like how of course, just the information and
Yeah.
having an iPad, to watch history videos on and, being I had, like, my cassette player for all my, like, phonics, rhymes and stuff
Yeah.
that I would do, and, yeah, it's just, like,
And
all that
homeschool
stuff,
being more
obviously.
mainstream too.
Yeah, 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 that's huge, and I also think here, being close to a lot of people who are doing homeschool in a similar way. Because
Mhm.
again, like, there were homeschool families in our area, I'm sure, but, um, definitely not as many, and then also it was often, like, very religious
Yeah.
and not as much of the yeah, like, self-directed learning, um, unschooling, yeah, like, yeah, we had never heard of Montessori or Waldorf or, like, these different, um, approaches, and so, yeah, I was just saying to my sister today, I was saying, "Just imagine, like" yeah, like, mama couldn't hop on the internet and, like, look up
Yeah.
something, um, some worksheet and, just print it out, like, it was just such
Yeah.
different access to everything.
Yeah.
Um, I think so do you want me to talk about, like, the things that I'm doing differently specifically or, like, or just sort of my, like, perception and
Yeah, I mean, totally up to you. I was asking more from like a perception type thing. I mean, but it is interesting to consider like I know that you are the primary person, homeschooling, but Mike
Yeah.
helps too sometimes, right? Which is different than what you were sharing before.
Yeah, like, I can't remember my dad's involvement much at all, like, I just don't think that was a desire or a, like, expectation from
Yeah.
either of my parents,
Yeah.
and mm, the times were different too, and also, we were in rural Wisconsin, so
Yeah.
maybe, like, a different part of the country could have been more progressive, but it was still very, like, um yeah, just more traditional, um, belief structures and stuff, and so I think, like, with Mike and having that passion for doing education differently, when we got together,
Yeah.
I envisioned a future for us where it was very collaborative, where we were both doing, like, our jobs and passions and also homeschooling together, and that reality is harder to achieve in
Yeah.
in reality than I, like, dreamed in my brain.
Yeah.
Um,
No, that's a perfect example and answer. Yeah. So
yeah, but I look back at, like, journals or, like, mind maps I had made, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, we still have quite a ways to jump to that bubble." Because right now he's the sole provider, and so works a lot of hours.
yeah.
And I am a life coach for moms, but my practice is just beginning. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, so the roles are pretty starkly contrasted,
Yeah.
but he is way more involved in the caregiving and yeah, homeschool life than I was, and sometimes that looks like cleaning before, like, we host co-op at our house,
Yeah.
or, if I'm, like, cooking a meal for the group, he does all the dishes for that, or, like, one is, like, he does a lot of Nola's, reading with her in the mornings,
Yeah.
and so, like, I more hold the, um, load of it, and then we'll
Yeah.
delegate specific little tasks of it, um, and that works
Yeah.
great for us now, but it's different, yeah, than I imagined.
Yeah.
And, um, I think another thing that it's just really important, I think, for moms maybe who are listening, or moms or dads, parents who are listening to this, who might be considering homeschool, just to know is like, there's just so many inspiring, beautiful parenting books and homeschool books that I read or listened to, and the implementation of them and how they really like live in your life and in your kids and in the
Yeah.
dynamic in your marriage. I mean,
Yeah.
everyone knows this from experience, but it's different.
Yeah.
The theory and the practice is
Yes.
looks
Beautifully said.
different.
Yeah.
And so I think just remember, like, so often, like, even when I was thinking about doing this interview, another mom said to me, like, it seems like you really embody unschooling. And I was like, oh, I do? Oh, great.
This is
Because,
actually a good segue because the next question is like, yeah, what sort of do you feel like there is a philosophy, if any, that you like feel the most connected to, and or do you feel like you're pulling from a lot of different places, or is it just, I think sometimes we look for the label and the books to, like, feel a sense of belonging, but I also think, like, sometimes I'm like, "Do we actually need any of that?" Like, it can be great for
yeah,
certain things, but do we even have to put a label on any of it? I don't know. But I'm
right.
curious, yeah, like, your relationship with curriculum versus no curriculum. I mean, I know a bit from what you shared about your background, and again, just from knowing you, kind of what you shared with me, but, would love for you to share that piece of it.
Yeah, I
Because I've heard you say to me too, like, "Oh, I guess, like, unschooling, yeah." So it's interesting to me that you
yeah.
had the response of like, "Oh,
I
really?"
just I really don't like that word
Yeah,
because and I mean, I know within the unschooling community, this is a conversation because, it's like, don't think of an elephant, kind of an idea of like, that's what you're gonna think, like, it's setting up this against something
totally.
or
Yes,
not something, and,
yes.
to me, I guess the idea of interest led education, self-directed learning I like, but also I think, again, in the practice of it and having my background in counseling and child development, I believe that children need um, quite a strong container and norming of like, this is the way we live, even in like um a more like evolutionary biology standpoint, like
Yeah,
kids do the best typically when there's this strong sense of culture and what we're following. And so the idea of like child-led learning or self-directed education, meaning like the self is the 5-year-old or 13-year-old, it's like, to me, that feels inappropriate and unkind, but I appreciate
yeah,
the focus on, like, what the point of it is, the point to me is cultivating the whole person and, like,
yeah,
seeing how my children and also, like, the children I interact with can thrive the best and be challenged and be protected and be nurtured and sometimes pushed and so yeah, to have like I just have some pause. I love words and so I get very like, why haven't we thought of better terms?
yeah,
But I see the nice things in all of them and the place that I'm at now is more what you were saying of like, we don't really need a label, but you sort of do because when you try to like join a Facebook group or go to a meetup, you kind of have to have some similar values. You're like, okay, unschooling groups, they meet a lot of the things that I value. Um, yeah. And then there's some nuance there.
yeah.
So, yeah, I love like the book Unschooled by Carrie McDonald, I think
Mm,
her name is, but that does a really great job of kinda unpacking what that really means, and that hits home for me. And so, yeah, and again, because I've experienced it from the inside out and grew up that way, um, like the homeschooled way, but also in a less traditionally educated way, I get it more on, like, a visceral level, and so sometimes having labels feels
right.
less helpful or, like, distancing
Yeah,
because again, raising my kids in a way that they are confident and capable, to me, one of the important things is that they can succeed in different environments and be adaptable. And
yeah,
so, it's important to me that they're not only educated in, like, a Waldorf way or only in a classical way or only, um yeah, in certain
yeah,
ways. So,
totally.
yeah, I think that and I for curriculums, it's interesting because I like, my personality really enjoys, like, checklists and, goals and vision boardy stuff like that, and, like, a syllabus, or, like, if I'm gonna try something new, I love to have, like, someone else talk to me about what they've done, what they've learned, and then I'll follow those things. Um, But then again, at like a base level, I was raised by 2 very nonconformist people.
Yeah.
My mom, yeah, was just very like, "You can't pin me down. Who you never know who I'm gonna." And then my dad, and yeah, just super creative. And then my dad is like, yeah, an entrepreneur and very like thinks outside the box, not super organized, and like doesn't like to follow any, like he just figures it out his own way. And
Yeah.
so I think I have that sort of value of defying convention, or like if someone tell like I like to seek out a syllabus,
Mhm.
but if someone tells me like, "Here's your syllabus, I have this," like, who are
Yes.
you to tell
Yeah.
me I need to follow the so I have a little bit of that I have to watch,
Yeah.
like the inner rebel, but then I do really enjoy it if it's coming from me, like
Yeah.
from my own. And so with my kids, because I see that I also really like to what like my favorite part of being a parent, me well, I don't know if I can say one thing, but one thing that I love about being a parent is seeing their surprising and unique things
Mhm.
emerge, and like
Yeah.
nurturing that, like not pulling it out, and not like I had a lot of like indoctrination as
Yeah.
a kid of like, this is the good way to be, this is what you believe, this is what you should think, this is how you are. And so getting to see how all of that just is there, and to
Yeah.
get to nurture that, to me, like that is such a privilege and responsibility as a parent to
Yeah.
protect that and give containers for that. And
Yeah.
so seeing those things in my kids, that like, oh, this part needs that container. And so like helping them find, I was saying a syllabus for myself, but like what it might be for a checklist for like, wow, that really, lights her up. Like who
Yeah.
knew having this tool. And so like helping them discern, and also helping them track what they need. So like that's sort of how I translate self-directed education, is like I'm guiding them with sort of, I have some things in the back of my mind that I know
Yeah.
from maybe my master's program, or when I created a curriculum, or from my own time in the woods when I was 8. Like
Yeah.
these things I'm like, maybe. And then I sort of like offer that, but then they often know, and they often have a lot of the ideas that they need.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's just really fun. And so I feel like, yeah, I use I use curriculum.
Yeah.
It's curricula is plural, right? I use curricula. I always feel like I mix those up. And
Yeah.
then I yeah, have 2 full day programs that I have my daughter in, and that I'm planning for my son to be in too. One is through the public school system, and so it's a very like traditional taste of sort of that block schedule, and the being in the classroom and having the um one teacher when they're younger, and then when they're older, they get to choose their own classes and like follow a bell system and stuff.
Yeah.
And then the other one is with horses, and less traditional, but yet they're still in a class, but it's more mixed age, and they have a lot of like hands-on learning
Yeah.
and with animals. So yeah, and then I think at home I have I sort of see these blocks of time as like, okay, well, these are our requirements. These are the areas of learning that the government values you to cover as citizens. And I agree. And like, I see the value in these things for you in these ways. And
Yeah.
I try to even talk to them about that when it's like, oh, I don't want to do whatever. It's like, well, let's talk about that. Like this wonderful mentor said, you have to come back to your values of like, well, do you believe better math leads to a better world? Like, yes. like, we wanna get better at math because that's gonna
Yeah.
make the world better, like, just zooming out.
Yeah.
I do that with them a lot, but again, yeah, this is where it becomes different from, like, the book. Like, when I listen to the unschooled book, I'm just like, "Woo!" Like,
Yeah.
it's just gonna be so perfect, and it's just I agree with all of this, and then sometimes I'm like, "Oh, I'm feeling for us at this time
Yeah.
for a variety of, like, from how I am, how our days go, the
Yeah.
ages that, we have to do this in a little different way. And so it can feel really herky jerky, on certain days. And I think that's just part of finding what works
Yeah.
for, each of us.
But I love the idea of being responsive to something and letting whatever it is continue to evolve versus it staying this like static thing, like, oh, we did this thing, so we bought this curriculum, so we're gonna like see it through all the way to the end, or we decided whatever it might be. That's just
Yeah.
cool. But
Yeah.
what I'm hearing you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, is like, yeah, there's sort of a responsiveness to like, yeah, this might work really well today and it might not work really well the next day. And so even like there's fluidity year to year, and then there's also
Yeah.
like changes even in the same day, right? So
Yeah.
like what you're
Yeah.
yeah,
And different topics,
yeah,
right? Like one subject might work great at the table for 30 minutes. And then another one, like leads to a meltdown. So,
right.
like, oh, that one has to be done. Oh, like for a while. Like I remember when we did, because we did a year abroad where we did world schooling. And I remember we were in Albania, and my daughter was so interested in the English royal family. And so we would do all of her like working on sounds and letters and writing and math. Like I would make everything just about them. And, we
That's
would like
amazing.
watch, yeah, I think it was the time when the queen had just died, and so she
Mm,
had seen something on the news, and so anyway, just, like, pulling in and giving myself permission too, because I think when I can get into my, like, "Oh gosh, like, we have to meet these standards so that, um, she doesn't have a hard time with X, Y, and Z." Like, when I get that pressure, it can be easy to lose sight of
yes.
the how that I'm doing it, and so just reminding myself of, well, we can accomplish these specific things, but do it with gentleness,
Yeah.
um, and yeah, and also some days are just tough, and it's just like,
Yeah.
we just get through it, and then, like, let's think about how to do that better tomorrow. It's like not every day is perfect, but
Yeah.
when it can be, yeah, like, okay, well, like a big thing is like the writing, like dictation prompts. Like she's like, why would I write about robots? I have no interest in that. And I'm like, okay, like we can write about anything, like just not
Yeah.
being too prescriptive. Like, well, it just says it in the book. Like, well, what is the book trying to get them to do? Okay,
Yeah.
like, how could we do that in a different way? And being creative with that. So,
It's interesting. One of the things that came up for me when you were talking, you were saying earlier about how Mike talked about being sort of dimmed, right? Like his light sort of being dimmed in school. And what you said made me think about, yeah, the ways in which, when we're tired or when when we're frustrated or when we feel the pressure of whatever it is we're doing, how like the teacher, the teacher, and I wouldn't even really call it that, but you know what I mean? Like the part of us that is like guiding and facilitating for our kids that can also be like dimmed, right? And like it's like, how do you keep that alive and keep teaching in the way that you want to
yeah.
versus like caving into, yeah, needing to follow XYZ. Like it's interesting how much conditioning or whatever it is, like it still finds its way not only
Oh, yeah.
into like how you plan your day, but also just like the how of how you're doing it too. That makes sense.
Yes. so much so. And I think that, yeah, that's such an important thing to bring up, like the light. There's some author who speaks about teaching from rest, or a book that's teaching from rest.
I
But
think Lauren, yeah,
yeah,
she talks about that book a lot.
yeah, I've just heard her talking about that. I haven't read it, but just that phrase
Yeah,
of just, or again, just like feeding your own soul and like teaching from present. And I think that, yeah, it's so much easier said than done, especially because you're not just teacher, you're also
yeah,
mother and running the house and doing whatever other jobs you have going on and with other family members and whatever. And so it's I would say, yeah, that's one thing that has been different than what I imagined, of just how challenging it is to connect to that on a regular basis and be teaching from that place.
yeah,
And I also don't like, sometimes I speak about myself as like, I'm teaching you this specific thing right now, but I also am constantly helping them see like, oh, you're learning from this, you know,
right.
author. You're learning from this, you know, person we know in the community, or this other
Yeah, so you
teacher.
don't become
Yeah.
like a figure
Yeah,
free it
yeah,
is
like, I
weird.
really try to see myself as, like, facilitator, and I
Yeah,
think it's also the personality of
yeah,
my daughter, my son, you know, it's still sort of in that, like, preschool kind of mentality where I'm not so focused on any academics, but, yeah, where um yeah, she does better when given more agency,
yeah.
um, but,
'Cause she's
yeah,
also
the she's what?
she's also a teacher. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, I feel like
yeah,
that's something I try to pull in with my kids too, is like, yeah, you're also teaching me a
mhm.
lot of the time, you know?
Yeah, right, absolutely.
Yeah,
And little siblings, you know,
yeah,
like literally teaching her brother, you know, phonograms,
yeah,
or, you know, how to do certain things around the house. Like, I also consider each part, like making a shopping list. How do you know, communicate with the clerk at the store? How do you order food at the like, life things
yeah,
are really important to me too, that they're learning. And yeah, teaching each other and seeing like how people who are grown can do that well. And when
yeah,
they see people not doing things well, like talking about that and like, how does that happen and how do you navigate that? And so like learning from the community, and like that's why I love traveling with them too, just getting a view on not only being in different states, but just whole different like languages and ways people think is very different, and you can learn from all of it.
yeah.
So,
We're kind of dancing around, like, 3 questions that I have, at the end of this, which I'll break them up, but the first one is, surrounding, like, your favorite homeschool days. What's happening on, like, the days that, like, feel super fulfilling to you?
hmm, hmm, I think f- filling myself as like a starting point is really important, I've learned. And so, like, starting the day off, like, often that'll mean getting up early, um, taking time for myself, if that's meditating or having my cup of tea, working out, um, feeling like I'm nourishing my mind, body, spirit, like, which is only starting to happen, like, in this phase. And I feel like early on, there were definitely moments where I couldn't do that,
Mm,
and I would be, just because of ages and stages and such, and I'd be like, I don't know if actually I'm cut out for it. I don't know if I'll be able to do this." And so learning like, oh, as I prioritize that more and as it becomes more possible in our
yeah,
life, that, yeah, just being like, if I am, you know, a lot of the like source for them when they're little, and I'm
yeah,
holding all these learning pieces, it's really important that I'm feeling good
yeah,
and like have slept well. That's another big.
I'm gonna
Big
pause you
one.
for a sec because the next question is literally like, what do you do for like self care, or how do you ground yourself in times when it does feel really challenging? So you mentioned
Yeah.
meditating, sleeping well, waking up early so that you have like that morning chunk. Would you add anything to that?
Um, Exercise, like, I'm a very, physical person, so, like, I just feel so much better if I've
Yeah,
exercised. Getting ready, like, I love, you know, like, doing my makeup, putting in earrings, like, putting on a comfortable outfit that feels cute, like, it helps me feel in the right headspace,
yeah,
um, and then it helps me feel and yeah, this transition and also the space. I will say, like having if things are starting to feel really chaotic, a just go to for me is just taking a break to tidy. Just like putting things away helps
yeah,
me organize my interior at the
yeah,
same time.
yeah,
And so that can just be like, okay, I just am going to take a break and organize the counter.
yeah.
um,
Are you
and
saying, like, take a break, like, yeah, if, like, in the middle of lessons, it feels like it's not like, you will be like, "Okay, and now I'm done."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or often if things just go off the rails and
yeah,
they're fighting or, my
yeah,
daughter's like, "I'm not doing this," or whatever, there will just be an organic space where I'm like, "Okay, well,
yeah,
I'm gonna go make a snack or I'm gonna go make lunch," and everyone just takes space
yeah,
and I organize. And what's best so kind of getting back to the question, like, what does a beautiful day feel like?
yeah,
I think a beautiful day is kind of getting ahead of that. So just
mhm,
like and I think this just comes with time of
yeah,
like being in the role and your kids getting older too, but just starting to know those somatic cues in yourself and
mm,
those you can't feel them like they can feel themselves, but you
yeah,
are feeling somatically some of the things that are coming up for them. And
yeah,
so to start to notice, oh, I'm getting that feeling. It's time to take a dance break or step outside, or like, let's go for a bike ride.
yeah,
And it's really hard for me because, again, that part of me that likes to be like, oh, we got all of our things checked off before 1 p.m. Like I would like to just power through, get those things done. But it's always best when I
mm,
listen to my body and to
yeah,
their bodies and be like, well, it's better to take a break than to push through
yeah,
for a check mark, right?
yeah, yeah,
Sounds so obvious, but in the moment, it's easy to override.
yeah,
And again, that's one of the important things, or that's one of my values, like why I'm doing this,
yeah,
because I want them to learn that skill of able to listen to their cues. And sometimes, like, we can't take it, like, we're on our way to your program, like, we can't stop and do, whatever.
yeah,
Sometimes you have to know that you overrode something,
yeah,
but then how to more often than not know how to actually stay with yourself. And
mm,
so I on a good day, it's when I'm realizing like, oh, I really listened and I
mm,
taught them how to listen too. Um and yeah, not doing things for too long. That's
yeah,
an important piece.
yeah,
Um and so I think like setting realistic goals, and again, that just comes with practice too, kind of trial and error. Because 'cause I'd be like, "Well, I think we can do 4 pages of this thing a day." And it's like, "Oh, no, that takes 3 hours,"
yeah,
or whatever.
yeah,
And then like, "Okay, we can do, like, this chunk or whatever," and whatever, yeah, it may be. Yeah, it's like realistic goals, taking time for myself. Yeah, getting to be outside is
mm,
so nice, and, again, that's always a thing that kind of is tough for me because when I was being homeschooled, we could just go out, and for me to get them to a woods, like a whole ordeal.
yeah,
We have to drive somewhere and, pack food, and I have to be there the whole like, we would just
yeah,
my mom would just, like, send us out,
right,
and so, that's hard. So
yeah,
sometimes I'm like that's part of it too, I think, is just me staying present even when imperfect things are happening. I'm
yeah,
like, we didn't finish all of that, or like, I guess we're just getting out for a half an hour, walk around the neighborhood, and like that is enough,
Yeah.
and trying to just enjoy what's right there instead of getting into my head about what it could be or should be,
Yeah.
um, in the moment, because of course it's important to have those conversations with yourself and others of like, okay, what's chronically not working, or what do we need to change or optimize, but like in the day to day, staying out of that and just trying to stay um present, and I will say the balance between my two kids, like on a great day it feels like there's been balance of both, and that's
Mm.
really really tough
Yeah.
because they're in really different stages and need different types of um help. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
meeting both of their needs.
I love that. What about, what challenges you the most with homeschooling
Mm,
or stretches you
pro-
the most?
yeah, I think probably that, the balancing both of them, and like all the all the different hats of life, and it all happening simultaneously. Like I love compartmentalizing and being like one on one and being very focused and doing things 100%.
Yeah.
So just having the um the real experience of nothing is 100%.
Yeah.
So nothing feels fully like satisfies that part of me.
Yeah.
um or I shouldn't say nothing, but rarely.
Yeah.
And so just getting used to that feeling, like it's again, when going with it, it can feel like ease, but a lot of the times it's like, it just feels like not enough time. I don't have enough attention. Oh, if I could just spend, 10 more minutes with him on this thing. Oh,
Yeah.
but then, my daughter needs this thing, or oh, I need to start dinner. Just
Yeah.
the juggling and balancing is that's definitely the hardest.
Yeah. Okay, last question. And then anything else you wanna add, you're welcome to. But if you could speak to yourself at the beginning of the journey of, like, deciding that you're gonna homeschool, um, or it could be interesting for you, like, speaking to the younger part of you that was homeschooled too. Maybe that's a way to reframe that, ask it slightly different, but what would you want that person to know?
Hmm. Mm, I think it's the idea of, I mean, this is just the first thing that came up, but like how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Mm,
Like your essence, your um patterns, your mind, the way you think, but also your greater sense of spirit. Like it comes with you to all of your roles. And so, like,
mm,
that me, who was a 7-year old in the woods, like creating these other worlds, um, is at my table with my
mhm.
7-year old. And it's this wild um experience of time
Yeah,
in a way. And just to know like that for me, like that magic, and also, the things that I struggle with,
yeah,
like the things that I struggled with in high school, the things that I struggle with my husband or with my sisters, or like those come up again. And so
mm,
like mothering and homeschooling in your mothering, it's like another, opportunity, and it's a very, like, concentrated opportunity to
Mm,
see all of that beauty in yourself, and then to also really see your patterns and your mind and how you can work with it or let go of it, and just to know, like, it's really nothing new. It's gonna
yeah,
be more of the same.
yeah,
And so to just, like, keep staying with that, like, that trueness of you.
so powerful and so true. And also it's like our education, right? Like in addition to,
Yeah.
learning things about Antarctica that we never learned.
Yes. Yeah, so fun.
Also learning, about all of those patterns. And I love what you said too about the good days being the days where you're like ahead of all of that. Like that is so spot on. I totally resonates with me. So yeah,
Yeah.
so good. Is there anything else you want to add? Anything I didn't cover?
Hmm. I mean, I just, I don't know who will find this or, be looking for this, but just regardless of, I would say, like, where you are, if you're like, you read a weird article about homeschooling, so now you're, like, looking into, like, is it as crazy as I think it is? If you're coming from there or if you're like, "I might wanna homeschool," or "I am homeschooling and it's hard," or "I'm homeschooling, I'm looking for new ideas," or "I'm thinking of quitting," and I think I hate it," like,
Yeah.
all of that is fine. And, like, just because I or, like, other people who are on, your interviews are doing it, it's like I just really think there are so many routes to
Mm,
being well educated, and
yeah.
so just to really, like, listen to your inner knowing and your children, and just trust, like, you just figure out the next best thing, like, the next step, and you don't have to
Next right thing. Isn't that a
yeah,
Frozen song?
yeah, totally. Oh, Banana, thank you.
The
But
next is it right or best? I think it's right. The next right thing? Yeah. I don't know. Anyway.
but yeah, just, like, trusting that, and you will people give us like, us homeschoolers questions all the time, like, "So you're gonna do this through high school?" And it's like, I truly don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know if I'll do it, 18 months from now. Like,
Yeah.
it's truly one step at a time.
Yeah.
And so, and that is true of all life. As much as we like to imagine we can control and predict, it's like we're really just living as we go.
Yeah.
So, just, like, trust that, yeah, whatever you choose will be best, and, um, it's a fun journey.
Yeah. Oh. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I love your perspective and your wisdom and like I said, like how much you've integrated all of it, like it shines through. So I appreciate you.
Thanks, Eva. I love that you're doing this, and I love your work on all of this and your mindset, and love you, so
Oh,
thank you.
thanks. Aw, love fest.